space-time. In this video, you will find my study discussion about Claude Bolling's Just Jokin. In case you don't know it, Claude Bolling was a French musician, an excellent pianist, a great composer, mainly playing and creating music in the field of jazz. However, you will notice if you search around his compositions, there are many recordings of his works on YouTube. I even will post some links about what I love most of his production. Claude Bolling liked often to, cross that ideal boundary that separates the world of jazz music and classic music. In this study discussion, I will not unfortunately show along the video screenshots taken from the music score, and this is because the music sheet is not on the public domain. So ideally, if you want to follow this discussion, you should purchase from the internet or from where you find it the score of this piece. Myself, I am owning this little booklet. You see, a very thin one. I guess I bought it slightly more than 30 years ago, and it contains 3 original jazz pieces. They are considered here original boogie woogie, written by Claude Bolling. And you can find again in YouTube a recording where Claude Bolling himself is playing these pieces, and he's playing these along with several other jazz style, boogie style compositions in an extraordinarily nice recording. I've noticed that on the internet you can find books for sale that have the same cover, but in that case they contain not only the 3 original boogies by Claude Bolling, but also jazz pieces and boogies that he performed in that recording that you can find on YouTube. Okay, so let's start with the practical considerations working along the music score. A first thing perhaps to get some general orientation is about the architecture of this work. So you are seeing here the shape of this work in symbolic terms. So it is something like what we found already in the antique rondos in Baroque music or in classic music, and nowadays in a number of pop or modern songs and compositions. Well, this for us that need to work at the piano has certain practical benefits, because you see that considering the total length of the piece when you play it, there are substantial sections that are being repeated, and this helps a bit in reducing our time spent to learn this difficult piece. Yes, this is a piece that contains a number of passages that require quite an advanced technical skill. In case you are not at that level, perhaps a good idea might be, at least for some time, avoid to play the most difficult variations in the piece. It is a possibility. For instance, keeping the chorus 2 and 3 and work directly on the conclusion, on the coda. Or while you will listen to my discussion, you will notice that often as a studying method, I suggest to start with a simplified writing of a particular passage. And in case you feel that that is enough for your level, you might stop there. Of course, it's not that rich, that full as the original rendition, but however, it provides, I believe, a nice jazzy and boogie spirit and musical character anyway. So let's start with the intro. By the way, in my studying of this piece, I took 2 references this time for my work. One is, of course, the music score, but the other is the original recording by the musician who composed this music himself. It's very funny for me that they have written tons of books, and they even hold conferences and lecture about how we should play Johann Sebastian Bach, where eventually nobody has an actual clue about himself who was playing his compositions. So why not in this case to study this piece by referring both to the music score and to Claude Bolling's original performance. And by doing that, I noticed one thing, for example. Well, the music score is quite accurate with respect to what he plays at the piano, but it is not 100% accurate with respect to what he has recorded. This might have different explanations. First of all, he was a jazz pianist, and as jazz pianists typically do, he was mainly improvising his works rather than writing them down very accurately. And probably he was performing different modifiers every time that he played these compositions. Well, we don't even know if it was Claude Bolling, at least I don't know if it was Claude Bolling who wrote this music score, because there are examples where we know that music played by great jazz pianists have been written down by other musicians that noted down what they could understand what they are playing, because often these great jazz pianists do things at the keyboard that is really very difficult to exactly grasp and translate in something written. So along this discussion, I will also highlight here and there a few details that I grasped by hearing the performance by Claude Bolling and decided to incorporate in my own performance of the piece, since I found those modifiers very, very interesting and pleasant compared to what I found on the score. Alright, we have this episode that is a kind of refrain for our architecture. It starts with two lines that are kind of, how to say, meditative and calm. We have a pianissimo on the score, and the first thing that you will notice if you listen to the original, it doesn't sound like Claude Bolling was really playing these two lines as a pianissimo. However, what I feel might be nice if you like is to push down the una corda and then playing these two lines with a kind of rich and full touch, okay, not to be too light, to produce a kind of good and full sonority. So we see that the left hand is doing nothing complicated. Let's review it a couple of times just to get a good order in understanding what we have to do. So you see, we have a syncopated rhythmical pattern, and it is probably easier to maintain the rhythmical order when we play together with the right hand. Of course, here we need to use the pedal, it is even written here, and let's see the right hand. The right hand is playing relatively easy chords, but different chords in progression that builds up a nice, jazzy and mysterious harmony. So we can read these passages in different harmonic terms, for instance, considering that we are playing a C minor, and on it we build a G major with the 7th. With the pedal we mix the two harmonies. And similarly, in the next two bars, the chords are a bit more exotic, but still I think relatively easy to, to visualize and to remember. And in case you don't find super easy at first to play these thirds together, practice a bit with, training your playing leverage that starts with the shoulder, of course, and to leave to the fingers just a peripheral action. The fingers are not the engine of the action to press the keys of the thirds. They are just channeling an action that must come from the arm. So a good way is to play a few times, repeating these thirds until you find that you get a steady, fall on the keys, playing the notes together. in practical terms, we are doing this. Let's comment about this work I have done. First of all, what to an external listener might sound like a mechanic repeating is not matching what is happening within myself while I'm doing these things. Basically, the aim is at every repeat of the third, monitoring your feelings in your arm with the sound to increase your level of relaxation. Try not, of course, to lose the simultaneity of these two notes. And this is a very good technical exercise because you are really working to train your fingers to be sufficiently steady and, a dangerous word, stiff, the finger itself. Whereas you have to train your arm muscles to act in the most relaxed possible way. That will be, of course, a contraction in that instant that you hit the keys. And then developing your technique means to release that contraction and to recover a state of relaxation, to lift your arm and drop again with the next third. Another thing, if at the very beginning it sounds like difficult for some of these thirds to be played simultaneously, you can try at first training the fall on a single note, for instance, the higher note. And then after you repeat this 2, 3, 4 times, monitoring your sensations, you start adding the other note. And so on. And the other thing you will notice is that in this step of my work, I'm not worried at all to play anything in legato. Actually, I don't want to play anything in legato because right now I am just to explore the physical setting for each third that gives to me the maximum of the relaxation, control, and stability. Once I feel satisfied with this, as I said, repeating this a couple of times, and this will build up in a few days, 2, 3, 4, depending on your level, that final confidence on the passage that allows you to consider it acquired and working on the refinement. So once I feel stable enough in my control on the third in individual terms, I try to work in the possible ways with a legato. And a legato word is a very tricky and dangerous word at the piano because often it's not possible to perform it with physical connections between one key and the other and the next. But this is really not the point because for the acoustic properties of the piano sound, in order to establish a legato, we have to be worried about our general fluidity in movements, the volume of a note with respect to the one that is being produced before and has been fading in that slight time frame before the next note. And then the pedal eventually, as a last step, will integrate what we are doing in terms of fluidity and sound continuity with our action. One last tip, I might suggest, if you like the idea, to choose the soprano, for instance, as being the leading line in this harmonic progression. This might be a bit of help during performance, not to get lost in the tiny irregularities in the thirds. Gradually, from the non-legato, we work to improve the connections where possible without torturing ourselves with impossible things that, besides being impossible, are also detrimental to the fluidity of the music because it degenerates a non-fluid choreography in our movements. And practice quite a bit without the pedal. When eventually you will add the pedal at the end as a refinement, things should start feeling even easier and smoother. Okay, we reach now a different texture, in the sense that at least the right hand is playing these chords. And basically the way to work on them is the same that I explained for the thirds. So if initially for some of them in particular, or all of them, whatever it is, you find problematic to play everything together, start with one note and then add the notes progressively. But first train your action to be relaxed in the form. Easier to say than to do, and you will realize that it is an endless work to improve this in your playing. I don't want to bore you repeating the concepts that explained until now on this segment. Just notice that here definitely we need a crescendo. At least you will hear a nice crescendo in the recording. I think is absolutely musically appropriate, so you might work in expressing that. As you remember, I was suggesting to play with una corda until this point. The una corda might stay on the first chord, might go away with the second, while the left hand is increasing the intensity of this rhythm. And it requires a bit of work to become solid on this. Is more difficult than what it seems. Well, if you want to add a bit of pepper, as you hear in the recording, why not to add a grace note before the E flat in the bass? And this requires a change in fingering on the rhythmical figure, because probably you were doing it like. So if you were playing the G with the 2, it's time to switch to a 1 so that you prepare the 2 for the E flat and the 3 for the grace note. And here you want to play really energically the second, the E flat, right? And so you want it to be with a good fingering, not to screw up the moment. And what to say here? Yes, you have in the score these two chords written as a double accent. Well, I feel the important accent is really on the last chord. And so what happens here? Well, we can play the first chord as a push-up and the second as a fall on the pedal. Yes, when we study, we can study both holding the notes as an exercise and then releasing the notes. In performance, we had better not to stay there for long because we want to go to the next chord that is not really right there. So it's like of a bouncing, but and another small modifiers, if you like that, as you hear in the recording, in the left hand rather than so would be let's go on. Here we see a for me mysterious tempo indication, beat tempo. What will it mean? I suppose it will mean to play with a knitted pronounced rhythm. It's possible because the first two lines might be played, if you like that, with a little bit of freedom. Well, here in the performance we see, I hear however that the tempo is not changing. The same speed that was used for the first two lines is maintained here, that I think is very nice. And so here we have this tricky scale in the left hand. Tricky because we have to hold the bass note. And I feel in order to express this beat tempo, pronounced rhythmical regularity, we could study that playing first the main beats only of the scale, that is, of course, review it first slowly to see what fingers you want to have on these notes. Okay, I think this is helpful. And then when you are solid with this, gradually you fill up. Now here in the score we see that these chords are written like. In the recording you hear two staccato chords. I feel it brighter, I like that. Up to you, if you want to stick with the score, just find your way to work on it. But again, first you reach a solid control of the chords individually with that same process, that sort of Tai Chi meditating, repeated playing of the chords. Tai Chi in the sense that it's really an inner process to monitor your solidity, your relaxation, and trying to get a tiny better control at every repeat. Here again we have, I think, an important accent to play. It is not written, but I think it's necessary for the spirit, on the repeated chord here of, what is it? Is a sort of E flat major with a 7th, a 9, an 11th, whatever. So again, a push up and a drop. I exaggerate the action to make it visible. What I want to say is that pay attention not to do this one, because this, you can feel it, immediately generates tension for the heavy repeated action of your arm, and you want the accent on the second. Very nice for me. And the pedal here. Yes, one general thing. You will hear in the performance, in the recording, that Claude Bolling uses really the pedal here and there. Mostly it sounds like he's not using pedal, or if he's using the pedal, he's using that in a very discreet, punctual way. And here I think, yes, in my opinion, we don't have to use the pedal until these landing chords. It's very helpful even for your choreography to jump to the next chord while the sound is being held by the pedal. But otherwise, it's all clean with no pedal at all. So, no pedal. Pedal here. Okay, and here we keep going with these textures, so the things I said are applicable to all bars, perhaps even here, you know. First, get solid with these less easy than what they look figures. And you notice the finger replacement. So once you achieve solidity in the folds on the notes, you practice a tempo or going gradually to tempo, removing the secondary beats. Here exactly the same thing. Practice first the scale if you like the idea, if you feel it useful for you, with only the main beats. And here at bar 14. From the recording there are nice modifiers, so I play it as I start with the octaves on the E flat, yes, first on the C flat, and modifiers here. This F make things more juicy, and if you like, you hear a grace note, I think is beautiful, like this. It needs a bit of practice probably. First get solid fall on the E flat and then try to make it quickly along the way. And here we have not easy chords to play in sequence. Always the same process I explained for the thirds, for the other chords. First familiarize with each position gradually, even removing notes initially if necessary. You want to develop a little bit of solidity with the weaker fingers in the chord, the fourth, the fifth, and however some work is necessary. And going chord. You see, I keep the same finger. I keep the same fingers on the same keys here, just I add the one on the flat. And you will notice if you hear the recording, these are not played like. There is spirit, there is, character with a nice phrasing like. Something like this, and if you like that, you need to practice a bit with these complicated chords. So this is the process, as I said. First, solidity on each positions, and then gradually working on the transitions. With the left hand that does what it was doing in other segments before. Here apply a modifier instead of. Here we goes as it was before. Good thing the harmony changed at the very last of the line, bar 20. And by the way, perhaps in your work might be of use if you have some basic notion of harmony in the names of chords, in spending 10 minutes to give a name to the chords, especially if you want to memorize. Might help, I feel, to have some reference point here and there, and also to perhaps to go over little memory gaps here and there. So you see that we are basically in A flat major at the beginning. What is it? C, D flat major. Again, A flat major. In a jazzy style, of course, with the addition of 7th, of 11th, of 9th, and so on. And basically, we are doing. This is basically the dominant of E flat major, so of A flat major, sorry. So E flat major with a 7th, a 9th, and 11th, so would be. That is played as. So you can spend 10 minutes or so to give names to simple chords that remind you the harmonic environment of the bar, might be of help, and the same thing going on. So from E flat major, from A flat major, sorry, with English words of the notes, I am a disaster. Again, from A flat major, we go on the D flat major, G flat major, and even this process of wearing down a bit your brain in understanding what bass harmonies you have underneath helps a bit to familiarize with the texture and to make it look less complicated than what it is. Okay, let's keep going. So we are completing our, how did I call it, a refrain of the ideal rondo structure. Same starting process, so first the fingering, main beats are 3 here. And here the score writes, I suggest a bit of paprika, as you hear in the recording, very nice, with replacing this A flat with a G natural. And then you go with the octaves. And here studying as simple falls, you have time to fall, rise and fall again. First, to again acquire solidity with a few repetitions, relaxed arm and wrist, and developing solidity in the prehensile grasping of the fingers. Doesn't matter, I think, if you can use the 4th, the 5th is not the point. You are playing non-legato even in performance, and it's very nice. Perhaps a bit of pedal. You know, I don't use any pedal. You do what you like. Here again, one modifier, very nice for me. Instead of. And in the right hand, the last chord, in the score we have a G minor. And I feel that listening at the recording there is a bit of spice here added. And searching what it might have been, I think that is a F sharp added. So instead of playing, would be the same chord, it is written with an F sharp. I like that. So again, we have this position that might be a bit uncomfortable for who has a smaller hand. As usual, I think you are used to play with a sort of arpeggio rather than the notes together. And again, the method of studying that I have talked about so far, so with relaxed drops a few times on the same chord until you feel you start being comfortable, solid on that position, then you change position, and then you practice changing the position right away. So and gradually increasing the tempo with no hurry. It might take a few days, you know, before you reach that point with a good solidity and sense of relaxation. So we reached the first chorus. A thing to practice is not to lose the beat, not to miss the beat. We don't have a corona, we don't have anything. We have to think it's jazz, there is the drum that keeps giving the beat. So even more than this. Of course, at the beginning, playing slower than what I'm doing. And now in the chorus. So we have the left hand that play this nice bass that you will find all the same for all the chorus. So this is a good thing for our studying. So let's have a look at the harmonic environment first. That might be of help to have a bit of orientation, even in case we memorize. So basically we have one bar that is playing around E flat major. And then we go to A flat major. Of course we are playing jazz, and so things are are kind of made dirtier with seventh, with chromatism. So is a E flat seventh, transitioning. You might see this chord in different ways. It's probably a B flat with the seventh, where the main note is in the right hand, and it is being, how to say, delayed after the C. Or you can see as, what is it, the seventh step in the scale. Whatever. Try to visualize, to memorize, to be comfortable with the passage here. And we reach an easy E flat major on the third in the bass. The same thing on the fourth tone of the scale. And if you have a big hand, I suggest of doing what I didn't do, that is not to stretch to be on legato, especially when you practice, but to kind of push yourself to do relaxed, comfortable, kind of ample jumps when you play slow. Jumps that will tend to become smaller when you play at tempo, but you train your arm, your fingers, your hand to grasp these positions with a nice full sound. Instead, if you get lazy, as I tend to be because of the large hand, I practice in a kind of sloppy legato when I play slow, but this will not help the brightness of sound when I'll play faster. So try to really push yourself, if you have a big hand, to jump to each position, especially when you practice the solidity of the touch, of the chords grasping. So, and even here get solid with first repeated falls on each chord, so the fingers really get solid, capable of handling the weight of the arm in a relaxed way. Slipping into wrong notes is part of the process. So you are doing this process exactly for this, to kind of reduce the amount of slipping off, because you develop solidity in your control of the arm, hand, fingers mechanism. And you repeat the single steps as many times as you like, as long as you feel that you are developing a slight amount of comfort at each repetition. And the right hand. So first I would probably remove the ornaments and playing the basic melodical frame. That is also a way, if you feel things are too difficult for you, to try to learn a simplified version of the piece. So and as you are seeing, I am playing, besides repeating the tones, but with a non-legato, because I want now to exercise, to practice my free fall of the arm in a relaxed way. That is very good to train myself to produce a full, nice sound. And if you listen at the recordings by Claude Bolling, in particular in one, you might notice that he's adding a E flat in the right hand to integrate what is happening in the left hand, creating a very playful, for me, nice melodic game in the middle range here. Basically what he's doing here, the left hand is playing it as it is written. Here with the thumb, I guess, he's adding in the right hand a E flat. So can you hear this? I play with hands together. If you like that, you might consider. Another step to familiarize with this not easy step of the piece is to play only the bass in the left hand. And so on. And let's see now to add ornaments. So there are written ornaments and there are others that you hear in the recording. I like both of them, so I decided to add both of them. You see, the first one is this kind of short trill. I would pay attention not to be too quick in that. It's a triplet in the way it's written. I think is the, in my opinion, best way to play it. And again, first insist a bit on the key notes of the rhythmical line. And without adding accents, however, because accents I think will not help much technically here. And then at first add the notes of the trill with a few repetitions with the arm, just to see what would be the comfort zone for that finger to play that note in full. And then gradually increasing the speed in the ornament. And increasing the speed, it also increases the, how to say, the rate of legato. And notice that in the second trill, it's a tricky thing because you might feel, if you are like me, that the black key is kind of interfering with the third finger, with the middle finger, because my finger is kind of slightly larger than the available width on the F if I stay here head, and easily this interference will jam up the trill. So I try for myself to play with a particularly curved third finger, so I kind of stay clear of the area where the black key and the white key are, how to say, both present. So something like if my third finger is playing here on the full width of the white key, I feel is a little more, how to say, safe to play this trill. And here ornaments that are not written but you can hear in the recording. This jump requires a bit of study. And
here I feel, whereas at the entry of the theme, let's say, the fingering that I find on the score, I think is the best option. Later, I prefer instead to take the G flat with the 2, because playing so many times these triplets with 3-4, that for me is really a kind of unhappy combination. It's very unsafe, risky. I prefer then to switch to 2-4-1. That is not super easy, don't misunderstand me, but after a bit of studying I feel it slightly safer than keeping the 3-4-3 pattern. So again, requires a bit of practice in being active with the arm, relaxed with the wrist, to be quick in adapting the arm and hand position here. But I feel when you're able to maintain active your arm and flexible your wrist, they are capable of doing quick and relaxed movements. Instead, when they tend to remain still, they easily develop a bit of stiffness and they kind of leave the fingers to take control, and things become more difficult to do. So you see again this game with the thumb here. And once again, important, I think that myself I forget too many times. When you play slow, keep the left hand very assertive, non-legato, jumping on the keys. It's a temptation by our, focus loss to slip to a kind of sloppy legato that doesn't develop solidity. It's not nice in sound. It's not a good thing. Doing this when you play slow, that doesn't mean to exaggerate. It's simply doing what you feel is natural to do if you want to jump across this chord. Also make us develop a sense of physical rhythm that I think will help us to be bright and nice when we play tempo with a jazzy character. Alright, bar 30, in the recording there are nice modifiers, you might consider them. So something like, I start from bar 29. So we have a repeated grace note with the G flat, F and G flat. And here you see it is written. Claude Bolling had this rhythmical decoration. That is not something like Czerny or Hanon, but so the F and F sharp are charged with the arm, and the thumb inserts in this C. So practice first the important notes, and then you add the C if you like. Here, of course, we have this jump that is a bit tricky, requires a bit of practice. First, even with the separate hands, and then putting them together. is nothing particular to say, the same way of studying apply. At bar 32 we have this trill here, I think shouldn't be super long, a couple of repetitions like and I would stick in starting it on the beat, not before, not after. If you listen to the recording, there are additional modifiers if you like them. A kind of trill, I'm not even sure about what it's doing, but here on the G flat, if you like it. Every time is doing this slightly different, I think is very nice, very lively, so I would suggest to find your way to do something similar. So we are at the conclusion of the chorus one. Here you might like to add a grace note on the chord in the right hand. Starting first with the chord, and then, how to say, like an accident to pass through the A sharp here. Also, what you find written here is not exactly what you hear in the recording. Actually, when these two bars are repeated in the choruses, I kind of hear some slight modification. I'm not sure exactly what he plays. However, what I'm doing is and here a bit of pedal, probably it is a good idea. We have these repeated notes here, right? Initially I started just reading them as in a classical repertoire you are taught to do, so changing the finger with the same hand, like. But soon I realized that it is a bit uncomfortable there, because you are in this position, you have the elbow here that aligned with your torso. It is not really comfortable. So I prefer then to do something like what is suggested here, even though it's not exactly the same thing. So left hand the first two notes, and the right hand just with a symbol finger repeats the G. You have to practice a little bit it, but shouldn't be nothing terrible. So first you can practice at the left hand. And then the right hand. Let's keep going. Chorus 2. Chorus 2, possibly the most difficult in my opinion. Now we start as before. If you listen to the recording, you hear accents that are not written here, but I think are very beautiful, very jazzy in a way of saying. So this first one is here. this E flat, and I feel, maybe you noticed when you see these great jazz players playing, the freedom they have in the action of the arm, and in particular you see how very evident is this very active and natural and free movement of the wrist forward and backward, and I probably hear these accents we are hearing are achieved with that technique, so I wouldn't be shy and I would really let it free. You know, we can play the key in the more frequent conventional way by a fall, but even by a push. A push of what? Of your upper arm that through the elbow is moving everything forward, keeping the wrist relaxed. This is very effective to have power and agility at the same time. If you like, we might zoom in this concept in one of my videos, the one where I discuss Chopin Etude in G flat major. I will post the link here in the description. I dedicate, I guess, half an hour in going into the details of what has been identified by certain piano teachers and pedagogists as alternating action in the playing mechanism. That is, alternating the fall of the arm, basically by a rotation of the upper arm from here to here. Here you see that this produces a downward motion. Alternating action, then taking the next note with the opposite movement, so instead of falling, you are kind of pushing. And you need to practice a bit to train your finger to take the energy that comes by the push. But once you develop this, can be very helpful in certain pieces. And I feel here there are several steps where this technique that I believe jazz players developed kind in a very natural way and exploit that quite a lot, is very helpful to have bright accents and agility. So let's keep going. And also these, I think, give the technical keys to work on the next line that is a bit tricky. So what I mean with this, I'll try to explain rather than with words, with what you're seeing. So we are reaching here like this. Was it clear enough? I'm not sure. I isolate, I try if I'm able to do that, what I'm doing just with the accents. So was it clear? So do not be only concerned about playing that E flat at the right position in the line. Now we'll have a look at that, but also with this action to make it with a nice accent, a brilliant accent. So perhaps you have noticed that with my arm I am doing a kind of basic pattern that is the pull on the E flat, drop, I stay in the position because here it's very agile to just use the fingers without cooperation with the arm, pull up, and I feel if you develop this action, working to make it natural, relaxed, it helps quite a bit in maintaining this syncopating rhythm in the way it is meant to be, I guess. is a very difficult point, I feel. So there is this figure. I would split it in two smaller problems rather than thinking as instead. First problem. So you see a fall here, pull up, and a fall. And not an accent here, otherwise if you exceed in the energy delivered on this fourth interval, you get imbalanced and everything is jammed up. So a very drop light fall, in a way of saying. And the second problem is it's not too difficult in itself. So you see that my fingering is different than what is written in the score. By the way, I feel there is a typo here, cannot be 2, 5, 1, 3, 1, but instead 4, 5, 4, 3, 1. I feel this is very problematic because you have a very super fast repetition in the E flat with the fourth finger, and after you would come from a repeated B flat with the second. I worked a bit on it, but decided to instead playing like this. It's not easy, but working on it I feel there is a sufficient degree of solidity, and especially you have to work to maintain everything from the wrist upward quite relaxed and free to work it out. Here the arm has to cooperate to be quick, flexible in helping the thumb in playing this. This is just flying, quite easy, but here is the problem. And the arm with the free wrist, the active arm is helping, I believe. So. From this point onward, I feel a bit of persistence and patience in just synchronizing first slowly this syncopated gain in the right hand and then increasing speed. You have noticed I added grace notes that I'm hearing in the recording. I feel they are very nice. If initially that's too long, you break it up in a couple of quarters. Here a difficult passage, so first familiarize with the notes, with the position. And this is the least of the problem. So first I would just concentrate on the syncopated beats. A bit problematic because they are taken by the weak fingers. Then I would add notes until reaching the actual main beat in the quarter, meaning insert the missing third. each position. Some of them is very easy, some of them is less easy. This is easy, this is not easy. So you have to understand what's the problem in the kinematic action and kind of fluidify it. This is easy. And here, how to work on thirds. I feel first develop solidity in the action, in the attack of each third with, as usual, repeated falls in a relaxed manner. And try not to fall as a stone, but as soon as you feel the contraction, kind of release it. And this means to activate flexibility in your wrist. So you can do this intentionally by lifting up your wrist as soon as you grasp the keys, and then try to do it in a more relaxed way the next time. While I release also the pressures on the keys. The pressure should be kind of an instant only. I don't need any pressures on the key after the sound has been released. It's minimal what you need in terms of weight to keep down a key. So pay attention not to delay the release of energy after the key strike. You cannot see this, but what I'm feeling is that I hit the key, and while I am still holding the keys, you are seeing, but I am lighter on them. I am not maintaining the weight of the strike pressing on that. And so on. Then you connect them in non-legato. And you try to move forward with the legato. And then the next step is to kind of visualize this complicated figure in small easy figures that are hidden there, like this is very easy. Another easy step is another easy, another easy. And the problem is to connect the easy steps with each other. If you want to zoom in the problem of studying thirds, I post a couple of links in the description that I found very helpful, very interesting. Please have a look at that in case you feel that thirds are problematic, as in fact they are. Let's keep going. Here we have the score that is not giving any hints about accents, phrasing. I suggest listen at the recording and you discover a world of character, of slight details that are very beautiful, very jazzy to make the line playful and expressive.
You notice a couple of modifiers, a grace note that I have inserted here. And notice the action of the arm to expresses that accents in the syncopated figure. So first we can simplify the figure. And try to feel your arm always kind of bouncing, elastic, because I think this is a key to express a nice syncopated rhythm with accents and spirit. And practice this. After this, you add the complete line. And you can focus on each quarter when you feel a bit uncomfortable. And I wouldn't be shy, as you hear is not shy, Claude Bolling, in landing on this C with a lot of energy at the end. You have time to smoothen it up, to soften it up in the repetition, in the line of the introduction. Let's go on with chorus 3. Alright, don't forget to practice the jump that you have from the end of introduction. So, if you notice what I'm doing, I land on the interval, on the fourth interval as an harmonic interval. I think is safer. It is also what you hear is being done by Claude Bolling. Here, I think this is a game of cooperation between fingers and arm, so you practice a bit slowly. A bit of rotation, a bit of grasping by the fingers, and then relaxing. I think it's easy to get to the final tempo. And what you need to do is to pay a bit of attention, because I think when then starts the figure with the 16ths, you need to change your third finger with a fourth to start the first triplet. The left hand, of course, is doing the same things it was doing in the chorus 1 and 2, so we don't need to spend time on that. Here at bar 60, in the way it is written in the score, is rather uneasy, Here, when you play it fast, it's really complicated, and if you listen to the recording carefully, it is not what you hear is being done. There is a slight modification that makes things more agile. That is, it is more ergonomic. You can try and feel it. What is the trick here, in my opinion? I like to visualize what we have to do with our arm and hand as something similar to a ping pong game, right? And here we have this imaginary ball that is being thrown and fetched. from remember, with my modifiers I'm doing and by the way, after the first E flat with the fourth, I think after is very comfortable, convenient to use the fifth rather than leaving it there doing nothing. And now, regarding that ping pong analogy, here the point is that the low E flat when you reach it and the higher E flat when you go back to the higher, these notes are taken by the arm energy in its movement going in that direction where the notes are traveling. So this is the last stop of my train taken with this movement. And again, going up, the fifth finger take the energy of the arm. What I mean to say is that really it's like you are a crazy driver that hits the wall straight. And why this? Because it's very easy for the next finger, that is this 2 when you are in the lower side and the 3 when you are up, to play sufficiently energically that key while you reverse the motion. Instead, if you try, it is more problematic, less ergonomic to invert the motion of the arm on the E flats. Instead, just go straight, hit the wall, and then you have a very efficient finger, the third when you are up, the second when you are down, that will start reversing the motion. I hope it was sufficiently clear. I exaggerate, so I try to isolate the parts of the playing system that are mostly in action. So the first is not a problem here, just pay attention after this, how to call it in English, I don't know, tremolo. Could you see that? And then it's very easy to practice, this. The only bit of attention is on the, as usual, on the thumb passing under here. But again, the aim is hitting that wall, the E flat, and the E flat in the bottom. Okay, let's keep going. So here again, we see on the score something that is quite different from what you hear from the original recording. And again, I have to say, what you hear in the recording is musically much more intriguing to me. Now, if we take the score as it is, well, if you wanna break some kind of Guinness record in terms of the fastest typist pianist in the world, be my guest, just follow what is written in the score. Yes, there are a lot of notes, these 7, how to call that in English, I don't know, settimine we say in Italian, so 7 16ths in a quarters. It's very fast. Once again, it is not what you hear. And what we hear in the recording is, in my opinion, more intriguing because it's more apparently anarchic, is less, how to say, crazily fast. It's very interesting. let's break it up to understand what I mean. First of all, in the recording you will hear that at the end of these two bars, so we are at bar 62, at the end, meaning on the last quarter beat, the left hand is here, before going on with. So when you are here, you will hear the original with a stop. This stop is a great idea because it's a reset, it's musically very consistent, is jazzy, is everything, and again, is a reset with respect to that anarchy that just happened before, apparently, and we'll go into that. But remember, the last quarter, consider to use it as a point of resetting your rhythmical pattern. Now, we are left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quarters between bar 61 and bar 62. And if you listen carefully to the recording, you will hear that Claude Bolling is not playing over these 7 quarters 7 times these groups of 7/16 in the right hands. No, he's playing 5 times these groups of 7/16s. So a bit of arithmetic, we have 5 times groups of 7 notes. That makes 35 notes. I hope that's right? So we have this little problem of fitting 35 notes along this pattern over 7 quarters. Well, I think you got the point. Ideally, we have to play 7 groups of 5/16ths. There must be a name in English, but I don't know that. I'm not even sure about the name in Italian. It is a rare rhythmical pattern that you find time to time in kind of bizarre or peculiar pieces along the classic period. So let's just identify that rhythm. So let's take a reasonable tempo and let's break down this tempo with different rhythm until reaching the 5 notes rhythmical pattern. So 1, 2, okay. Let's take this tempo, let's see if it works. 1, 2. First a dual rhythm. Let's go to the ternary rhythm. Usual things now. Let's go to 4. Let's go to 5. Do you hear it? Now let's try with this pattern. It's a miracle, I did it kind of exactly the first time. And well, in my humble opinion, the point is not to be a perfect mathematician and playing regularly these notes, but the point is that you reduce the number of 16s so you don't get crazy in fitting so many quick notes in these 7 quarters. And you, of course, you might practice, study it, try to be regular. It's a possibility if you can be regular in your studying days, but eventually, thanks to that final effect of reset, you remember, you can use that as a name for a small adjustment in what you are doing and to keep going, although perhaps you realize that you are a little bit shorter or a little bit longer when you are reaching the end. You understand what I mean? However, now let's spend a couple of minutes in seeing some preparatory training for this, as I call it, anarchic rhythmical situation that I like it very much. First, we are seeing that we play 5 times these groups of 7/16ths. And in fact, if you listen to recording, you will hear 5 times the E flat being played. before the final reset. Now, so let's see how ideally these 5 groups of 7 notes are split across the quarters. So the first beat is by the E flat, of course, and then let's keep going playing just the main beats of the groups of 5 notes that have found. And yes, what I did is I rewrote these 2 lines visualizing this grouping of notes, because it's very helpful if you want to study it. So again. And pay attention to use the finger that you will find when you arrive there if you play all the notes. So after screening is slowly to just set up your fingering and then isolate the notes and the fingers on the main beats. Now, as next step, let's fill up some of them. Now, the opposite perhaps. So a few times in one way and in another. And then try your best to be kind of regular. However, once again, that reset notes is very helpful to make slight correction in case you didn't manage to be exactly mathematical, as probably is not the point of being. Was it clear? I hope so. Let's go on. Here once again I suggest a modifier that is based on what you hear in the original recording. So instead of this, I feel it a bit mechanical repetition of the E flat, in the way it's written on the score, well, the actual performance is here how to study this piece basically is everything we have come across so far. So first get stabilized on the position, and actually 2 quarters are enough initially to prepare yourself for this. Now I am just keep going, not to make this video lasting 10 hours, but then you can focus on the little problems that you find along the way. Moving from non-legato to a kind of legato. And paying attention that the thumb typically needs a lot of cooperation when it passes under the other fingers. Cooperation given by the relaxation, fluidity, agility of the wrist, the forearm, the upper arm. Here in the score we are still playing higher. I have listened to 2 recordings by Claude Bolling. In one he plays higher here, in one he goes back in loco. Do what you prefer. A bit of pepper here. Not written, but you can hear something like that in the recording. Here you can practice a bit in chords.
Here needs a bit of practice. Here in the score we find this fingering. I don't feel it for myself ergonomic, agile enough. I prefer to go on the 5-2 and on the 3-1. I have to say I don't like much this texture. Is something that doesn't come easily for me. I had to spend a lot of dumb drilling time, let me call it like that, in repeating several times. I never found a definitive ergonomic solution to this. I wish you better luck than me. However, how to study that? This is what I did. So first, a bit of familiarization with the main beats in the rhythm. Then doubling it. And then I guess it helps perhaps slightly some kind of sudden cooperation by the flexibility of the arm in this way. Look. It's kind of taking off, jumping off the last 16th semiquaver, really jumping with the hand and landing on the next main beat. Even because we are not playing Cerny, with all due respect. So it's not that we have to visualize in our mind the music as ta 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 ta. If you ever heard that toccata by Cerny, this is jazzy. So there is some irregular, how to say, flow in these 16ths, in my opinion. And this kind of jerky action by the arm on the last 16, I think is in favor of that kind of inegal jazzy rhythm. In particular, I feel problematic the last 2 quarters, so a bit of focusing on there. And here, I don't surrender that idea in the very last, although it looks a bit odd. Here a bit of pedal is kind of natural to be placed, paying attention not to mix up everything. Perhaps you've heard that I applied a slight modifier that I take from the recording at the very end. Instead of doing 3 times, the 3rd time would be. And we are reaching the coda. This figure here, I think, can be seen as composed by 2 halves. The first one is. The second is. I believe it's very important to keep the aim as the A flat. The temptation would be at first sight to consider it. No. The rhythm is pushing to go there. And so there is a first half here. So a bit of studying on the thumb passage underneath the 3rd finger. practice it slowly, non legato, as we have done so far, and then gradually increasing the legato. So. Clearly the bass requires certain weight. And the right hand. The right hand, I think, is important to grasp the fundamental rhythm. So it's not tan tan ta 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 ta. No, it's again. And you fill up gradually with the more important notes. And so when you then fill up completely, keep in mind that these are not a number of stones that are thrown on the key. It's not. No. So you can even visualize like forte, piano, forte, piano, piano, forte, piano, forte, forte, piano, forte. This dynamic seems to make things complicated, but actually in terms of your gesture helps a lot in developing a more fluid choreography. You can practice several times removing the less important notes at higher or lesser degree and get settled with the nice jazzy rhythm that we have to express. Let's go on. So here we have this nice boogie bass. First I would study it in octaves. So a few times. Of course you can concentrate on one bar, actually even on half the bar, as short as makes you feel comfortable initially. As next step, I would remove the thumb and playing only with the fifth finger. It is the difficult thing, but actually that's the very important line in these two bars that then are even repeated. So this must be really heavy in a way. We must hear very well the fifth is the carrying line. You have to train this fifth finger to take the weight of the arm. And then let's start adding a few notes in the right hand. And playing slow, I would suggest to activate, I'll exaggerate a bit to make evident what I'm doing, a kind of syncopated choreography. Look. So it's fall, fall, push, 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 fall, push, fall. Trying to make it fluid and natural. At least for me it helps to maintain order between the carrying beats in the bass and the syncopated beats in a way
in the right. And I wouldn't exist in energy in the right hand, especially in the second part of the bar. That would be, I believe, against becoming fluid and agile. The important thing is the bass, a couple of chords here. And the rest is kind of a playful noise. Next line, let's simplify it first. By the way, here I feel to modify it in the same way you hear it in the recording, that is, instead of, this is the way it is written, instead, following, I step into the E sharp. So, and that was the final result that comes after spending some time with those intermediate steps. One of them being also playing just the fifth finger with the right hand played in full. That is a difficult thing to do, and I think is, however, very propedeutic then to what you have to do, filling up with all the notes that are written. And sorry, that was an E flat that should have been natural. And so when you fill it up everything, you might wanna focus on half the bar, for instance, or even on 1/4. So here, for example. The pedal, I think, can be used, can be not used. If you use it, I think, however, be kind of very agile, just brief touches like to increase perhaps the sonority, but is better, I think, not to mix up these chromatids. At least not in according to my taste. I'm really kind of playing, messing a bit things with a quick press and release of the pedal at nearly every, I think, quavers. And we are repeating this figure and we reach the end. So here we have this line. Now, first I would learn the carrying main beats, of course. We are going to the fortissimo, and so we have, to dance with this carrying rhythm. And then let's add the secondary beats, but second in importance. notice that we have an accent on the false, so then we can merge everything. These 30 seconds shouldn't be, I think, too, how to say, too quick, too nervous, more like triplets, I think. You know, I feel, at least in my experience, it was like this. If you develop solidly the control in these main notes, then it is very quick, kind of natural to just put those ornaments that are taken by the fingers along the way. And here what to say, you are at fortissimo with energy, joy, just pay attention to try to get the right notes. So a few folds practicing, I think, is important. The C is taken along the way without much weight. And the last four here. So, thanks for watching this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again in my next video.